My second point is you talked about the outstanding success, or you were pleased to see Mr. Carney moving aggressively and action to reassure people. Quite frankly, Sir Martin, you've made your point yourself in your own copy yet again, and I'm halfway through your release. I didn't get this one in time to go any further, but it says companies are sitting on over $7 trillion of net cash. They're under-leveraged, they are cautious, they're not spending money. Martin, do you think, honestly, easing the cost of money, easing the interest rate that people are going to get, ruining pension schemes left, right and centre, do you think that's going to actually increase people's optimism, decrease their caution? It's going to have the opposite effect, isn't it?
Well, in the short term, Steve, we needed a little bit of underpinning of confidence, because it could have turned out to be a real disaster. In our own numbers, what we saw in April to June in the UK is a softening. Probably people being very cautious rightly so, in front of the Brexit vote, as it turned out. After the Brexit vote in July, and it's only 1 month, I underline that, we saw a strengthening. So we're seeing sort of conflicting forces. But the basic scenario, I think you're right, I do agree with you on this one, that what we see is a world that is growing slowly. I don't see any reason for a downside breakout, i.e. recession on a worldwide basis. We'll see countries going into recession. We've seen Brazil struggle. We've seen Russia struggle. We've seen other markets struggle. China also is slow growth at the moment, not in recession, but slow growth. Certainly not the growth that is claimed around 6 or 7%, probably running at about 2, 3 or 4%. We had a tough first half in China. We see a better second half in China. So the BRICS countries, with the exception of India, which is stellar at the moment, it's the one shining star of the 4 BRIC countries, we've seen slow growth. We've seen a lack of inflation and therefore very little pricing power, and a focus on cost as a result. In our release, Steve, when you get to the chart, there's a very interesting chart, we think, which shows the performance, the stock price performance of the brands that we value most highly and have valued over the last 10 or 11 years with the Financial Times and the annual survey that we do. If you and I invested, and Karen and even Steve, even Jeff, who's on holiday maybe, if he invested in a fund in each of those companies, so let's say we took the top 10 for the last 10 years, our portfolio would be up by well over 100%, against an S&P and an MSCI, which would have been up about sort of 65, 70%, and an MSCI that would be up about 30%. So we'd outperform the indices if we invested in those companies that innovated and invested in their brands. So I do agree with you that there is excess caution. One of the other things that we highlight in the report is the rise in dividend payout ratios for the FTSE 100. It's gone up to about 70% now. The FTSE 250, much less. It actually tracks what WPP has done over the last few years, going up from about 30% to 50%. So the dividend payout ratios is another example of the caution that you're referring to. And I agree with you, it is wrong. You look at investment by US companies in the US over the last 20 or 30 years, investment as a proportion of GDP has fallen and fallen. And that tags back to your $7 trillion of net cash sitting on balance sheets.